smoke. It used to be that lung cancer was so rare among women that it was a reportable case. And now lung cancer in the United States is killing more women than breast cancer. And it's all because of smoking. Now, you can't tell somebody who smokes, don't smoke. It's like telling them don't think about purple elephants. But we do teach them self-hypnosis. We teach them to focus on protecting their body, on thinking of their body as if it were a trusting, innocent child that had to take into it anything they put into it, even if it were damaged by it. And to think of themselves not as stopping themselves from smoking, but protecting their body from the poison of smoking. And what we find when we teach people to do self-hypnosis for this, half will stop right away, half of them will not have a cigarette in 2 years. So that's not bad. We get 1 out of 4 people after a single session of self-hypnosis. She's saying chicken soup, aisle 4, alternative medicine. We tend to think of chicken soup as alternative medicine. So we could, if you'd like, try a little self-hypnosis exercise. Would some of you like to see what it's like to do self-hypnosis? If any of you, is that okay, Father? Or we can. If for any of you who don't want to do it, just sit there and watch what happens to the other people. And it'll be a very simple experience, and I'll make sure we get everybody back at the end, all right? So get as comfortable as you can. Now first look straight ahead, and then look up to the top of your head, high as you can, all the way up. And as you look up, slowly close your eyes. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let the breath out. Let your eyes relax, but keep them closed and let your body float. Try to get the sense of your whole body floating down, floating into the chair. And as you concentrate on your body floating into the chair, imagine that you're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or just floating in space. Each breath deeper and easier. Body floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. Feel that pleasant sense of floating. And if you have some discomfort in your body, imagine that that part of your body is changing temperature, that it's becoming cooler or warmer or tingling, and let that new sensation filter the hurt out of the pain. Filter the hurt out of the pain. Each breath deeper and easier, your body lighter and lighter. And now please picture in your mind's eye an imaginary screen. It could be a movie screen or a TV screen or a computer screen or a piece of clear blue sky. And first picture on it a pleasant scene, somewhere you enjoy being. Now notice how your body is feeling. Notice how quickly and easily you can use your store of memories and fantasies to help yourself and your body feel better. Now please divide the screen in half, and on the left side of the screen picture one thing that has caused you stress today, but with the rule that no matter what you see on the screen, you keep your body floating, safe and comfortable. Each breath deeper and easier. And now use the right side of the screen as your problem-solving screen to brainstorm a way of dealing with the stressor on the left. It doesn't have to be the best way or the only way, but just a new way of dealing with what's troubling you on the left. Again, your body is floating, safe and comfortable. Problem on the left, possible solution on the right. Each breath deeper and easier. Now take a few moments to reflect on what this feels like to you in a private sense. And then when you're ready, bring yourself out of the state of self-hypnosis by counting backwards from 3 to 1. On 3, you'll get ready. On 2, with your eyelids closed, roll up your eyes and 1 open. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay. Everybody back with us here? I don't see anybody floating near the ceiling, which is a good thing. How many of you think you were hypnotized? Just raise your hand. I see a few hands going up. How many are convinced you were not hypnotized? How many are still hypnotized? Does anybody have any comment about the experience? Anything surprising happen? You were falling asleep. Well, that was during my talk, actually. No, but it's an interesting point. Some people, particularly who are sleep deprived, will go to sleep, but hypnosis is not sleep. Hypnosis is actually waking up. It's focusing your attention. It's not sleep. Any other? Yes, sir. Less pain in your butt. Good. I'm glad to hear that. What sensation did you substitute for the pain? Floating. There he was just, I noticed you were a couple inches off the chair, actually. Yes. Yeah. Right. Interesting. Were you able to see the thing that made you anxious from a different point of view? Did it change the way you thought of it? Good. Yes. Thank you. That's a very important observation, that she said she was looking at something that made her anxious this morning, but she was able to see it and not feel so anxious and feel more calm. And that's a way of getting a different perspective on whatever's making you anxious, because part of what makes this kind of vicious cycle of anxiety is you think about something, you feel terrible, you feel immobilized. You feel like there's less that you can do about it because you just feel so bad. And if you can just see the problem without immediately feeling so bad, you begin to think, well, maybe I can manage this. Maybe there's a different way to think about it. So it starts you on the path of reconstructing your point of view about it. So good. Thank you for that. Any other? Yes, in the back, sir. Could you stand up? Yeah. The question is the hypnosis the same as guided visualization? There are people who do what's called guided visualization or guided imagery. And I suspect that when people do guided imagery, if they're hypnotizable, and not everyone is, they may go into a hypnotic state. What's a little different is the people who do guided imagery have very structured images they tend to sort of step people through. I tend to try and get people to develop their own images. I think from my point of view, that works a little better. Find an image that works for you. Mine may not be the right one. So I provide some sort of guidelines and ask you to construct the image. So it's a little different from that point of view. But I think for some people, guided imagery is a hypnotic-like experience.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments about the hypnosis experience? You can just, yeah, put it there. Okay. All right, everybody is back with us now. So it is a very quick, the other thing is it doesn't take very long. You don't have to do counting upstairs and downstairs. It's something that you can do very rapidly and quickly. I can remember the first patient that I used hypnosis with when I was in medical school was a young woman with asthma. And the nurse was trying to tell me where the patient was, and I was just following the sound of her wheezes down the hall. And I come into the room, and she's sitting bolt upright in bed, her knuckles white, having trouble breathing, wheezing. Her mother was crying. And I had just taken my first hypnosis course, so I thought, well, here's my big chance, because medication wasn't working. So I asked her if she'd like to learn a breathing exercise, and she nodded. And so I then remembered, and I got her hypnotized, sort of the way we did it here. And I remembered that we had not gotten to asthma in the hypnosis class yet. So I'm thinking, well, what do I say to her now? And I said something very complicated. I said, each breath you take will be a little deeper and a little easier. That was it. And within 5 minutes, she's lying back in bed, the wheezing is better, her knuckles weren't white, her mother stopped crying. The nurse ran out of the room and filed a complaint with the head nurse, claiming that I had violated a Massachusetts law by hypnotizing a minor without parental consent. Now, Massachusetts has a lot of weird laws. That isn't one of them. And her mother was standing in the room when I did it. So then they told me that it was dangerous and I had to stop doing it. And I said, well, you want to put her on steroids. That's a lot more dangerous than this. And so finally, we had a radical resolution of the problem. I said, I'm not going to stop doing this if she's my patient, because I know it's helpful to her. You can take me off the case if you want. So the intern had a revolutionary idea. He said, let's ask the patient. And the patient said, I like doing this. So she continued to do self-hypnosis. She'd been hospitalized every month for 3 months. She got out of the hospital, and she studied to be a respiratory therapist. So I figured that anything that could violate a non-existent Massachusetts law and help a patient that much had to be worth looking into. So sometimes very simple things can make a big difference in the way you control how your body reacts. How does it work? Well, one rule is that not everybody is hypnotizable. About 2/3 of the adult population are at least somewhat hypnotizable. About 10% of you are extremely hypnotizable. And so it means that most adults can make use of hypnosis. And one of the things actually that determines who is and who isn't is your genetics. There are people who have a specific form of a gene that is the precursor to a major neurotransmitter in the brain, dopamine. And if you have that form of the gene, you're more likely to be hypnotizable than if you have different forms of that gene. So there's actually a genetic legacy that makes it easier or harder for you to be hypnotized. When you're hypnotized, you change the way your brain processes signals. So for example, when this gentleman's butt hurt less, it wasn't just that he was reacting to it differently. He was literally turning down pain signals in the brain. This is an EEG in which you record brain's electrical activity to stimuli, and the red lines are a normal EEG when you apply a series of shocks to subjects' wrists. And you see the brain response here to those shocks. The yellow line is what happens if you give the same shocks, only now the subject is hypnotized and you tell them your hand is in ice water, it's cool and numb. And you can see that their brain only gets about half the response that it had before. So it literally turns down its reaction to the pain. We found that the same is true with vision, that you can teach highly hypnotizable people to alter their color vision. And what you do when that happens is you change the way they process color signals in the part of the brain that does color processing. So here's the part of the brain that does color processing. We taught people to drain color from a color grid and add color to a black and white grid, sort of like what's happening here. And when they were looking at black and white but thought it was color, their brain was reacting as though they were seeing color. And when they were looking at color and thought it was black and white, the brain thought it was black and white. So I call that my believing is seeing experiment, that hypnosis can be used to profoundly alter perception. And that's true for pain as well. This is a study that shows that parts of the brain, remember I showed you the somatosensory cortex before, when you hypnotize someone and make their hand numb, they get reduced activity in the somatosensory cortex. And one other part of the brain that is involved is a part that mediates between our emotions and our thinking. It's called the anterior cingulate gyrus, and it tells us whether pain really bothers us, and you can turn that signal down too. So these effects actually change the way the brain works. They're not just changing your reaction to things. This is that part of the brain that seems to be involved in hypnosis. So it helps you to mediate between how things feel and what you think about them, and it allows you to focus attention. So techniques like hypnosis is the